Free flying is a skydiving discipline which began in the late 1980s, involving free-falling in various vertical orientations, as opposed to the traditional belly-to-earth orientation. The discipline is known to have originated when Olav Zipser began experimenting with non-traditional forms of body flight. Zipser founded the Freefly Clowns as a two-person competitive team with Mike Vale in 1992, and was joined by Omar Al-Hegelen, first ever FA Freestyle World Cup and World Champion, Charles Bryan, and Stefania Martinengo in 1994. The Freefly Clowns are also credited with opening the first school to teach free flying, the first school of modern sky flying. Free flying broke into the limelight in 1996 when the SSI Pro Tour added free flying as a three-person competitive discipline at the second televised event with sky surfing, part of ESPN's Destination Extreme series. 150 countries watched the Freefly Clowns, Olav Zipser, Charles Bryan and Omar Al-Hegelen, as they took first place in all four international competitions along with other teams like the Flyboys, Eli Thompson, Mike Ortiz, Nutcracker, Fritz Fner, Team Airtime, Tony Urugallo, Jim O'Reilly, Peter Raymond, Brian Germain, and many other pioneers of free flying showed off their best moves. In 1996 and 1997, the SSI Pro Tour staged 8 televised events in both North America and Europe with $36,000 in cash prizes awarded to free fly teams. SSI invited the 1997 Pro World Champions, the Flyboys, to participate in the 1998 ESPN X Games as an unofficial exhibition. The resulting global television exposure made legends out of the Freefly Clowns, the Flyboys, and others. A once fledgling offshoot of the mainstream, free flying now comprises fully one half of the overall skydiving community. Olav Zipser's Space Games used the space ball as a research and measuring device to provide a constant speed and direction from which individual athletes could be trained, rated, raced against each other and judged. The Space Games took free flying to the next level from 1998. Thanks to the efforts by Arizona Free Flight LLC, Omar Al-Hegelen and Kama Mounts, who ran test competitions and wrote and submitted the rules for futures competitions. In 2000, free fly was accepted as a skydiving discipline by the International Parachute Commission (IPC), and the first official Freefly National and International Championships were held worldwide.
Okay, so first off, guys, I'm not worthy of doing this. I know that. I haven't been in the sport long enough. Freefly has its origins way back in sort of the mid-80s, and I actually think probably way before that as well, in reality. Someone was telling me about an image they saw of a guy with one of those reserves on the front of their rig, you know, the real old school things, and then there was some dude surfing him. So all this stuff goes way further back than we can really fathom, I think. I've only been jumping since 2006, so, you know, all I can really do is I can talk about my personal, the evolution that I've seen over the years. But what I've done is I've spent a good number of days scouring the internet and asking people and trying to get some kind of a feel for what was happening back then. You're going to hear a little bit from Olav. Hopefully it'll come through the speaker clear enough. He's kind of hailed as the father of all this, and I suppose he probably is.
Free flight to me is a philosophy. It's swimming in the ocean of gas. And I swim in the ocean of gas, and I can do that like an atmosphere dolphin. And if you start thinking that direction, then you can take the stalling out of falling.
Okay, so I don't know if you can hear that. He was talking about a philosophy. Well, I think that back then it was very much a case of we jump out of the airplane, we try and fly in different orientations, and we play with it, and we see what we can do with it. And the difference between that and these days is now we want structure, and we want a sort of a method of learning, and you're going to start here and you're going to go from here to here to here to here to here. And especially with like the advent of the tunnel coming in, we end up with that structure having to be really rigid, because if it isn't rigid, then people hurt themselves, right? So whereas in the sky, you'll see a lot of very big, aggressive moves. So all of this footage is all from way back in the sort of late 80s, early 90s to towards 2000. And you're going to see a change in the style of people and their positions. But in reality, they're still flying in a sit. They're still flying in their head down. Sure, their arms and their legs might be in a slightly different position, but they're basically doing the same thing. And the modern way of doing these things, you know, the shelf and the daffy position that we have now in the wind tunnel, is actually more because of the notion that they work in the wind tunnel. They're slower falling positions, so we use those in the tunnel because that's what works. The thing to look at here is the lower speed. So everyone's wearing quite considerably baggier suits. They're also flying in, generally speaking, much slower falling positions. So if you think about where people would have started off with their free flying journey, would have been they would have learned how to fly on their belly, they would have done probably a shed load of tracking, and then they want to steepen the tracking up, and then they want to learn the sit fly and the head down. So, but actually they're probably, way back in the early 90s, chances are they were probably one of a few people on the DZ who was doing this kind of stuff. Most of the people were flying on their bellies. So the baggier suits is a good way of being able to fly in these different orientations and actually still fly with your buddy who's on his belly. Now, he may have to arch his socks off, but he's going to be able to stay with you. And that's useful. He can film you, you can fly with your mate, all that kind of stuff. The quick flips and everything that you see now, especially here, you don't see that in the tunnel. You know, if people start doing that in the tunnel, then it's a very, very long journey to make that kind of maneuver look good and look safe. In the sky, you can flip yourself as much as you like, and it just doesn't matter. You've got that infinite space up there. We're now flying in the sky in the same way as we're learning in the tunnel, and because the tunnel is that very small space, we're not flying at these high speed. We're not flying and doing these high speed maneuvers like these guys were. So this bit here, this is Olav in Russia. This is a 40-way. Changes shape in a minute. So we can see there, see his suit. I mean, that's an epic suit. But it does sort of, anyone who knows anything about big way FS formations, this is probably falling as slow as 100 miles an hour. You put a big group of skydivers together, falling on their belly, it's going to be falling pretty slowly. He's maintaining static head down at slow belly speeds. Now, obviously, he's a tall chap. He's got a big suit, but it's also a testament, I think, to his skill. And I would argue that there would be very, very few people these days who would be able to fly like that. And this is without the help of a tunnel. This is him writing the book on it, making it up. And I think himself, and I think a load of other guys at the time, they would jump out of the airplane and they would just mess around. They would try and fly different orientations. They would see what they could do with their bodies and see how fast they could flip and all the rest of it. We've lost a lot of that stuff now, and I think there's very few people possibly in the world with enough skill that could fly that slowly with that much control around a group of 40 skydivers like that. Now, when we talk about suits, there's been a real evolution very recently with suits. So we've got Olav's suit there. Now, that to me is a little bit like having a, you know, standard family car, and you've got a 5-litre turbocharged V8. That's what he's got under the hood. And that gives him that range. He's got all that acceleration. He can do pretty much whatever he likes. Then you go to what might look more like the standard suits, which a lot of people are wearing now, you know, sort of a medium range suit, which is a bit like having a car with a 2-litre engine. Okay, well, it's great. It does everything you want it to do. And then when you go even tighter than that, you are actually putting a smaller and smaller engine into your car. So if you're wearing a really, really tight suit, then you're basically trying to fly with a 1-litre engine trying to push a big car along. Now, Olav can fly at 100 miles an hour around a 40-way in every orientation at will, because he's got that big suit on, he's got that big engine, basically. Spaceballs came in. So this is kind of lost a little bit now. We don't see the Spaceball, and I think it's partly because a lot of CIs would probably have a bit of a hissy fit if you said, can I jump out of an aeroplane with something that's going to hurt someone if it lands on them? I think we'll talk about it a little bit more in a minute, but what people are doing in the sky now has changed. So back then, the Atmosphere Dolphin program and the set of things that you had to do with your Spaceball was the Freefly test. We're going to see Olav in a second do some really cool stuff around the Spaceball. And it's a constant thing that's falling at a set pace, and you're going to be flying at different orientations around this constant. Now, it's a little bit like the tunnel to a certain extent. Tunnel forces us to fly straight down, and this also forces us to fly straight down. Big cameras back then. A lot of cameras. So most Spaceballs were made with a tennis ball filled with sand with a little ribbon on there. And the ribbon would be the sort of the adjuster of the speed and make it fly a little bit fast and a little bit slower. So if we watch Olav here, you've got to fly relative to it, very close to it. You do your series of cartwheels, which is a move that tends to have been lost these days, without losing any height or gaining any height on the Spaceball. And then just that last act there where he took the ball and pushed it through his legs. Anyone who sort of can fly head down, have a go at that next time you're flying. Just try to clap your hands between your legs. It's actually very difficult. So passing a ball through your legs is equally hard. Passing a ball behind your head, flying with your hands above your head, full stop, when you're on your head down is very, very difficult. So we're all flying faster now, right? So what do we need? A bigger Spaceball. Or you end up flying like this. Now, one of the things that when I found this video, I was looking at this and I was thinking to myself, after I watched it, and then I went back and watched Olav do his thing with a Spaceball, I actually asked myself the big question: who is actually the more skilled flyer? Now this guy, this is a very, very carefully edited video. He is not in as close proximity to that Spaceball as Olav is. He is flipping around it in a very sort of modern flip-floppy way like everyone's doing in a tunnel now, but his proximity isn't there. He can't stop moving, mainly because he's in a tight suit. And I think we're basically out of the whole jump. We're seeing the odd moment when he's very close to it. I think the rest of it, I don't think he was necessarily particularly close. Also, where are all the other things? Where's the static cartwheel? Where's the head down cartwheel? Where's all the static stuff? And then, of course, you get this extra stuff. So the guy obviously feels he's a bit of a big shot. Hashtag, oh my God. Upsets me, I'm afraid. So the irony is he's doing what everyone thinks they should be doing now, like all this flip-floppy stuff and super straight body and everything else. Has he evolved, and is he a better flyer than Olav was back then, when Olav had no tunnels whatsoever? And I still feel that Olav could probably fly the socks off that young chap, despite the fact that hashtag Nuff said is clearly his thing. So this is actually a bowling ball. And it's falling so fast that actually like, so there's a guy there on his belly. So this is just some random footage from back in the day. All right, this is I'm not sure if this is a bag of flour or a bag of ashes. I'm not sure, but has anyone really improved much? Has anyone been on a head down jump recently where people were this close to each other, in this close proximity? That's actually pretty rare, isn't it? There's a dude there literally flying on his head like that. Well, that's not easy, guys, if anyone's tried to do that in any capacity. The fluidity and the smoothness of what these guys are doing is arguably, I would say, better than it is today.
So this question is from Living to Be Free. So I don't free fly yet very much, but because he's only got about 130 jumps. He's not in a hurry, but I'm working on back flying in the tunnel. He's asking, what is a good progression in the tunnel or the sky, and where can I find sound resources? Is there anything that I want to avoid when I'm learning? So let's start with that aspect of the question. Where do you think people should focus on as they're learning as a new skydiver?
Okay, first thing I would say to him would be like, hey, try to consider that you don't have 130 jumps, but you wasted to think that you could have flown 130 times. And that you can start on your next flight, not next jump. Don't think, or try to think from another angle. Can it be for you not a jump coming up, but can you possibly agree in your head and yourself that you actually going to fly away from the plane and swim through the ocean of gas and basically start all over on the belly? Close your eyes. See if you can do things like this with your fingers while you're turning left and right with your eyes closed. Breathe in, breathe out, and think you're actually flying. Start right there. Don't do the better sit fly tomorrow. Don't try to do the triple twist in the head down and become a world champion after tomorrow. Learn to breathe, learn to feel yourself, learn to think while you are in the air that you're actually flying, not jumping. If you think jumping, you will never really learn of what I could possibly want to teach you. So that's
nice.
My advice.
Nice. It's good. Yeah, to awaken into this creative process of playing in the sky. And I would even add to that, why not start right now? Why not change the way you think right now? As you're walking around.
Yeah, your next flight shall not be a jump. It shall be a flight. And it's all in the head. It's a philosophy. It's not of how it's... what I get confused with is the attitude of grown-ups when they want to learn something new. Very likely they haven't learned anything new since a long, long time because they're grown-ups. And you learn new stuff when you are a kid. You learn new stuff when you are a kid with a different attitude. It's not important that you learn something. It's just important that you experience something.
Yes.
And that stops when we grow up. Then we get trained. And now we're rich enough, grown up enough, and crazy enough. Now we want to start skydiving. And now we learn something new with a different attitude for the very first time, likely. And the attitude is like, oh, I must make this worth it. Is this dangerous or is it safe enough? How much money do I need it costs? How much time does it take away from my job or my other activities? We start to reason all this.
So I think Olaf's trying to say there is that we don't actually need to be always like banging out progression. Progression comes in a lot of forms. So I personally feel that if you the best and fastest way for you to learn something as far as skydiving goes is to be doing a 1 in 3 jump kind of system of coaching. So you get some advice and then you go off and you do 2, 3 jumps where you're just experimenting and you haven't got the pressure of the coach, you haven't got the pressure of the camera on you or to perform. You can mess up and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that the other person's like going to land and go, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that. You can experiment. And what they would have been doing back then, one guy on the drop zone learning how to free fly, everyone else is doing FS and he's doing some solos. He would have just gone out and just messed around. Can I hold a stand? Can I hold it on my head? Can I do a steep track? Can I, do different things, different flips or whatever? And then developing that. And I think sometimes people learn a lot faster when they don't have the pressure of being pushed and coached. The other thing is as well, as adults and as grown-ups, we very rarely actually learn anything that can be comparable to free flying. So it was probably all the way back when we were learning how to ride a push bike, where we had stabilizers on the push bike, they get raised up a little bit, we wobble down the street, then ultimately the stabilizers come off, and then mum's holding the back of the seat, she lets us go, we wobble down the road and away we go. Now that child, given 6 months, is doing jumps, wheelies, endos, bunny hops. He has no idea how that bike works at all. He has no idea of the physical gyroscopic forces or anything else about how that bike works. But he's doing it. He's just carrying on his own sort of sense of balance, and he's kind of evolving himself to make this happen. And we're doing the same with free fly. You can't watch a million YouTube videos and then jump out of the plane and be able to fly head down. Absolutely doesn't help at all, not even slightly. And arguably, sometimes those people that do say, oh, well, I watched 10 YouTube videos on how to do this particular thing, they often take even longer to learn anything. So if we can go out there, we can jump out of the airplane and immerse ourselves and just say, no pressure, let's just have a go at doing this different stuff, then we're probably very likely to succeed. I mean, obviously it's going to take everyone different amounts of time. So let's see, can everyone hear the projected sound? Just about okay. A bit more from Olav. What we're going to see here is we think that flying angles
So
it's a new thing.
we've got,
Apparently
head
it
down
really isn't.
and sit, and that really defined in many ways what free flying was. But now, of course, we've got angle flying, or Atmanati, or whatever you want to call this stuff. First of all, he was asking, how do you feel about that aspect of it, and what do you think is next?
Hey, I think this angle flying stuff, it's not a new thing or whatsoever. It's the first thing I started off with, or we all started off with. Ask John LeBlanc from Performance Design, or Ben Reynolds at that time, and Rickaby, even Scotty Carbone, who recently passed away. Mm-hmm. Those were the old boys, which were older than me, but we did angle flying, we did steep tracking and track around the airport. Mm-hmm. It is not a new thing. It's just something which maybe was not so not so very much classified in the free flying. People say that I want to learn sit flying, and most of them actually didn't want to learn sit flying. They wanted to go straight to head down. That was the coolest,
Yeah.
And my school was never really advertising so much, you know, it's like, hey, you know, we can go also tracking. We would go tracking every day. We go tracking with our group every day.
Yeah.
What do I think about was the question of all this angle flying and atmonauty stuff. I think it's a great thing, you know. That's like everyone who's inspired and wants to be a teacher or a mentor or an organizer or an animator, you know, like Marco Tizzi with atmonauty, for example, was, like Mike and myself, you, we all want to teach our mind to others when we see they want to learn this, you know. And if someone concentrates on going angle flying or tracking or whatever, it's just whatever they say it is and whatever name they give it, it's really not that important. As long as people are happy, safe, and find a way of how to play in the sky together. And if someone wants to help to organize this, more power to you. You know? Go.
Okay, so anyone who's been to boogies and things recently, you'll notice that in the last maybe 5-6 years, there's been a gradual increase in how much tracking and tracing or angles, you know, tracing and angles are the same thing. So tracing and angles there's been a steady increase, and I was asking a few people about like the Christmas boogie in Algarve a few weeks ago, and they were saying that it's about 50% of everything that would be normally under the Freefly umbrella. We've got free flying, and then we've got tracking and angles. And I was kind of thinking, I was trying to wrap my brains, why has there been this sort of movement over to this stuff? And the only thing I can really think of is it's a relatively easy thing to kind of get good at, get started at, and have fun with. Anyone who's learned to fly, sit fly, or head down will know that it's a very, very long, arduous journey, and there's nothing necessarily particularly pleasant about it until you finally get to the top of the mountain and you are flying on your head and you're enjoying yourself. But the learning process very often isn't a great deal of fun. Whereas angles and your tracking, fun straight away. I mean, we learn how to track when we're on our AFF course, and apart from, you know, honing that and making that look a little bit slicker and a little bit faster, we are fundamentally doing the same thing as we did right back on our AFF program. And then I sort of thought as well, we're looking nowadays at most of the people that are doing this organising, they are tunnel flyers. And then they're now organising in the sky. And I think that there's this element of, I'm out of the tunnel, I'm out of that 14-foot space, and I can go places. And I think that's what a lot of people are getting out of the airplane and go, okay, well, I can fly the head down, I can fly the sit fly in the tunnel all day long, but actually I want to go places. I kind of want to travel some distance, and I want to go somewhere, and I want to feel that I'm moving across, which is something obviously we can't do in a tunnel. Whereas I think back in the early 90s, as Olav was saying there, he used to start off doing tracking. That was the first thing that he ever did. Once he sort of honed some belly skills, and he honed his tracking skills, and his tracing skills, and steepening everything up. So I think back then that was quite an easy thing for him to achieve. You can go out and go tracking all day long, but what we really want to do, what they really wanted to do back then, was to smash out the sit fly and the head down. That was what they considered cool. And now we're almost kind of moving slightly away from that. I mean, 50% of the jumps on a boogie being you know, tracking, I think that's quite incredible. And that's a definite change over the last 5 or 6 years.
And that's what Freefly is.
It still is.
Do you remember my poem? We came from the sea up onto the land, and then we dreamed of flying. Mankind has developed into a flying species. Balloons, airplanes, spaceships, and now the pure body itself. Cruising the atmosphere, the last frontier before space, now open to flying for everyone. Freefly, endless loop. I wrote that, I think, in 1990.
You can't help but love the guy, can you? He is a fantastic chap. So yeah, let's have a look at the speed of these maneuvers. You're going to see lots more sort of helicopters. We've kind of lost a helicopter. I mean, at the end of the day, if you wanted to do a helicopter in a tunnel, I think that's a good 1,000-hour venture, if not 2,000. Back then, the helicopter was, well, if you jump out and you like spread your legs really wide and you create an angled shape with your arms and you keep your body straight, you will start rotating really fast and it's really cool. So they used to do a lot of that stuff. And we've very much lost that. We don't really do that in the tunnel, so therefore we just don't do it in the sky either. There's a little bit of footage from like some modern day teams. And I think if we compare this to what we sort of saw the Flyboys doing and the Freefly Clowns doing earlier in the video, this is all fantastic. I mean, no one cannot deny that it isn't fantastic, but it does have a sort of a slightly different tune to it. It's kind of slower and smoother and more controlled. And I think again this is kind of a hang up from the tunnel. I think that there's no fast rapid flips because you're not going to be doing that in the tunnel. Now, with the exception of the freestyle stuff, now every now and then we see a freestyler who doesn't have to work relative to the other performer. They just have to work relative to the cameraman, and hopefully the cameraman his job is to stay closer to that. So I think every now and then in the freestyle world we actually do end up seeing some of these rapid fast flips and twists, and that sort of has much more relationship with the older stuff. This is Olav on the tunnel.
The trouble is the wind tunnel model, we have to admit, is very boxy. It's very robotic, as you say, for safety reasons. You know,
of course, you have such a restricted little place.
Yeah, yeah.
And it hurts so much to go a little further than you have space in the tunnel.
Yes.
If you try to go a little bit further, it hurts so much.
Yes, I know.
There is just no more space.
Yep.
And therefore, the special rules have to be done, you know,
Yeah.
and special curves and carvings have to be trained. You can't just, there's no straight lines in the tunnel for a long way, you know.
Yeah.
So many of those things are just not in the tunnel possible by design, you know.
Yeah.
So therefore, different teaching methods. Yes, totally agree.
Yep.
Okay, so for me, in conclusion, have we really done very much with this from the early 90s or approaching 2000? Is what people are achieving in the sky vastly different? And I genuinely don't think it is. We all think that we should have evolved and become better flyers, but I don't think we have at all. And I think that every now and then when you show someone who's really great in the tunnel and you go, hey, do you want to see what these guys were doing in the mid-90s without any wind tunnels? And they look at it and they go, wow, that's actually really impressive. What those guys were achieving back then without very often the coaching, the training and the wind tunnels, I thought was quite incredible. So This, in a way, is the only bit that I can actually properly quantify, because this was the bit I was here for. This is my team, which is not actually performing anymore. And this was our 2012 routine. I kind of put this one together and I stuck GoPros all over my body in different angles, so, you know, forgive that if it makes you feel a bit ill. And I think you'll see sort of a difference in the performance as we watch the different years tick by. We did do better year on year, but not by a massive amount. We gained, you know, a couple of places. So actually, in a way, this is as much a reflection on how the competitions have evolved. So when I first started, you didn't actually have to be anywhere near as good as you have to be right now in order to sort of score the same result. That move there, by the way, when we were on our bellies, judges love that. We actually scored really high for that. Oh, what are those guys doing on their bellies?
Belly is a new head down.
The belly is the new head down. And this was our sort of penultimate year. This is Dave and Sean performing with me on camera. No prizes for guessing where it is, I'm afraid. So guys, we have got about 10 minutes before we need to clear the room out. So this is a good time to put some questions out there. Has anyone got anything to add to what I've been waffling on about this afternoon? Yes.
Hey, so you know, you were saying like the progression of all the angle flying. I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago there were some guys who were saying, okay, maybe we're doing too much of this now, especially out in places like America. So they were then started to decide to, okay, let's do the angles, they're good, but let's mix it up with absolutely everything that we can do, including static head down, points, flips, twists, and then start doing like belly exits and doing these weird moves that like the angle stops, they get together, they flip and they go again, you know. So that stuff I see as more of a future than just purely one angle, you know, just
Yeah,
doing
absolutely.
everything, you know.
Yeah.
The fear in people's eyes when I was in a group and the loan organizer said, okay, we're going to do an 8-way belly exit, and people shat themselves, right? No one had any clue. We had to get someone from like Hayabusa to come along and actually like teach us how to do it. No one had any idea how to do any of this belly stuff.
Did it work?
It did work, actually.
Well done. Yeah, no, I think you're right. You know, there is there's basic tracking, moving around the sky, you know, changing your direction, trying to stay together, and then there's that more advanced stuff, which is where you're heading now, where we're sort of taking the entire group and we're flipping it, or we're completely changing, so those people that were leading it on their bellies are now on their back, and it's changed 180 degrees direction, and everyone's staying super close and all that sort of stuff.
It's got smaller as well.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that's definitely a big move. If you look, like, I scoured for a lot of the older stuff, and I couldn't find anything where they were, you know, they would change direction around the sky like this at a very, very steep angle, you know, literally sort of only like 30 degrees off pure head down, so moving pretty fast. And you would see a lot of that, but I didn't find anywhere they were doing this followed by that. That's not to say that they weren't or couldn't, yeah, but I didn't find any. So yeah, I think that's where you sort of take, you know, said maneuver and you go, right, okay, where can we go with this now? So yeah, you're right. I think that is an evolution that sort of started to happen.
Do you think the competition scoring has become not damaging, but like the fact that the level's now quite high in a competition level? Does that make it better or worse to compete? So that you used to be, you don't anymore. Why did you stop competing? Is it because of the rigorous kind of competition scoring?
It's actually changed quite a lot. So we definitely the last year we competed, we did the best performance of our entire career without a doubt. Year on year, other countries were having sort of larger and larger cash injections, and it got to a point where we were competing with teams that were able to do between 500 and 1,000 jumps, and due to, you know, a million restraints, we could only do about 120, 130. So in order to be genuinely competitive in that field, you kind of have to do that same number. I mean, that's the difference between putting a routine together and making it look okay, putting one together and making it look really, really polished and really, really smooth. So it's the competition has sort of massively upped its jump numbers, and therefore its skill level, and therefore I think genuinely now any team that wants to get anywhere near the podium would have to be spending similar kind of monies to what you'd be achieving, or what other teams are having to spend. Well, we're looking basically at about 60 grand a year if you wanted to get anywhere near the podium now. As a team, because one of the big things you're up against, so I took, we used to take effectively 2 months of the year off work. Now, for the other guys, it was a series of holiday and extra, you know, unpaid leave and stuff. For me, as being self-employed, I was, you know, that's 2 months where I'm not earning any cash. So you've got that, and then you're paying for your training as well, and obviously there is help from the BPA. So, you know, you do get something back, but you're still looking, each year on year was still costing us something in a region of, as a team, on average, about 11,000 a year, not including the fact that we're taking 2 months out of our working lives. So if you want to be competitive and you want to do 600 jumps, then you're now looking at doing, you know, 4 or 5 months of your year as being, you know, training. That's when you have to be training. And also you can't obviously afford to pay for all that. No one's just, you know, you can't have a team with 3 lottery winners. So that's the only way you're going to be competitive, I'm afraid. If you want to get anywhere near the podium now, it's about 60 grand. And that is going to cover, you know, just about cover people's, you know, being able to take time off work.
Sorry, a good point to make that you could have literally turned up with 3 people last year and got bronze with Freefly. So there was only 2 teams then. So you're talking about world stage, right? But
talking about the world stage, yeah.
You've got to start with at least the UK.
Yeah.
Please do turn up.
And actually, that's the world. Even the world stage is different from year on year. So the easy to get to drop zones, the ones in Europe, which is where most of the teams are from. The American teams, as far as I know, they don't really get any funding. They may well get some personal sponsorship, but they're also up against it financially. So the European held meets have a far more people enter. this last year was in Australia, and you know, the standard of flying was mind-blowing. You know, it really was incredible. But it did mean that there was a whole load of teams that basically just sort of couldn't afford £1,000 each on airfare and all the other costs that go with that. So there was a lot less teams in that competition. So that can help as well. Ali?
Going back to the suits and things, do you think that skin tight suits or something like that do actually have a place?
Yeah, they absolutely do have their place, and it's undeniable that if you are flying in a skin tight suit, that you have to learn to fly your body a lot more. But what it also means is it means that people are flying much straighter, flatter bodies. Now, my slight concern with it is now sort of started to do the judging stuff. When we've been judging someone who's done nothing but super straight body, you know, flip-flopping around, which is, you know, supposed to be, you know, the thing, it starts to look a bit on the boring side from a judging point of view. And the moment someone kind of breaks that and they ball up, you go, oh, thank God you like just did something different. That might have just sort of saved you from getting a really terrible score. So I think there is that danger if we only learn to fly being super straight, then actually we're going to be taking away some of the really cool stuff. I mean, arguably one of the best flyers in the world, Adam Matacola, he doesn't fly a skin tight suit, and he doesn't fly his body fully straight. He can, and he does every now and then, but he doesn't all the time. So it's like, well, actually, I think if a mid-range suit is Adam Matacola's choice of suit, then I'd probably suggest that he's probably got it somewhere near right. And I do think that you take out a lot of range from not flying something too tight. And it's always funny, like when you hear the guys in the tunnel, the instructors, and they say, yeah, we sort of like put a student suit on, and like a really big one, and it was so much fun. It's like, yeah, it is fun, isn't it? Like, you can turn the wind right down. You can do amazing things with a really, really baggy suit. So I just don't think it's as important as a lot of people are putting weight on. But you know what? People want to do it, that's up to them.
So, like, kind of get from your view that you think Freefly has devolved since the 90s to now, kind of getting that feeling, like, why do you think that is? Do you think it's because of the structure of tunnel flying, or do you think it's just people got lazy, and what can people do to try and come up with more, like, impressive ways of flying than it was in the 90s because you want to push it forward?
Yeah, I think the tunnels being small and restrictive, and we've got a training schedule in there which we have to adhere to a certain extent, otherwise people get hurt, just mean that the types of flying people were doing and what they're doing now is quite different, and there's a lot less sort of speed and aggression and chucking yourself into stuff now versus how it was back then. Those are my thoughts, and I don't know if you guys sort of like on the video could see that difference. So especially when we look at the guy flopping around the space ball, you know, is that better? Is that technically better? Is that more difficult than what they were doing a long time ago? And I think he was claimed as world champion, but I think he was actually national American champion, which America's the same thing really, isn't it? So, you know, he's at the top of his game, he's at the top of his tree, and yet, to me, Olav was definitely achieving a lot more interesting stuff around the space ball than what he was doing. What were you going to say, Paul?
Oh, it was just the evolution thing. It's like flying around with your hands above your head and dirty pizzas. Don't get me wrong, I've done it a few times, you know, and it is really hard, right? I don't disagree with that, but there's a reason not everybody flies around in dirty great pizzas like on the record, because it's not the best way to do it, to build a thing, or to I don't know, it depends what your definition of good is. If it's the hardest position you can possibly fly, then I guess, yeah, the pizzas is the way forward. But if you're trying to do it to develop and fly in a group, then surely the modern positions are more accessible. So yeah, that's I just...
Yeah,
opinion,
but
I guess, and
like if we went back to the beginning of the video, you would see guys in pizzas flying relative to other people within a foot or so in complete control.
Do you want to set a pizza record?
So
yes, I'll say that. No, but my point is that is harder. I totally get that. But then, if that was the case, surely we'd all try to fly near each other in the hardest possible position we could all fucking do. But that's not. You see what I mean?
yeah,
That doesn't.
yeah.
Surely it'd be more fun to have 10 of you razzing around having fun than. I suppose it's perspective on what you think is the evolution on.
I think that pizza hands are. It's a good way of digging in and getting a bit of lift every now and then. And I've got a shoulder injury right now, so people will say that when they see me flying in the tunnel, I always start off with pizza hands, and then once I get going, I can kind of relax my arms off. So, do you know what? I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think pizza hands are a bad thing.
I never said it's bad.
Now that's controversial, right? That is good. Capsey says pizza hands aren't a bad thing. I don't think it matters. It just doesn't matter. I don't think.
Pizzas. I avoid out many a pizza. It's just because it's harder doesn't make it better. That's what I suppose my point was. You see what I mean? Otherwise, we'd all try to be flying around, penciling all the time. If it's more accessible to more people, surely that's evolution. We're good. I would argue.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Cool. Thanks, guys.